Hey, Composing Gloves here, and today we're going to be talking about transient shaping, affecting the transients of sounds using these compressors that are sort of designed to do this. So getting a compressor to affect the transient of your sound can be really important to getting a groove. For example, I have this groove right here. Without a transient shaper thing on there, it sounds like this. Let's say I want to make it sound a little more clicky. Well, I could just remove some of the sustain. I could go even farther and increase some of the attack. So now it pops out like that. Let's say I want to remove some of that and increase the sustain. So now I have a more of a, just a more full sort of static sound that I want to blend in later. Whatever. Maybe I'm fading it out. I'm doing an automation of some kind as the exit of my piece. Whatever I'm going to do. So what is going on here? Well, these things are basically specialized compressors. You see, they're very simple, and we're going to use a variety of things to get at the transient. So we've already looked at sort of a compressor in the earlier videos. So what we're going to look at here is this guy, which is basically a specialized compressor whose job it is to say that's a transient. Don't affect him or do affect him. It can identify or at least try to identify which ones are transients so that you don't affect those things while affecting the things that aren't. So you can preserve your transients and still get the punch or the level that you desire. And then the other thing is, so there's a couple things that do that. So that's one of them. And there's another one called Transient Processor by FL Studios. And this is one I don't own yet, so I'm not going to show you. But you see we have a number of additional options. Split frequency is freaking cool, though. I have been messing with this. I can get a little more specific, but I have a hard time actually trying to get the same sounds that I do out of Transient Master out of Transient Processor, which is something that was sort of interesting to me. They're different plugins, so they should sound different. And I was just surprised. I was like, wow, this is actually, I would see reasons for pulling one out versus the other. So right now I use this, and it's fine. The other thing I use to do this is a Multiband Compressor. I specifically Maximus because it lets you draw envelopes in expansion in a very unique way. So I prefer this one. There is one other one that comes to mind by Waves. I don't own this one. This one's called Transients, I believe is the name. And I use that one in the studios a lot because they have a Waves bundle there, and I don't have this. I don't have my bundles, my plugins there. So I use theirs. And so anyways, that's another one. So you see there's not like any one set way to get at your transients, but there are plugins that are designed to sort of affect those to get at them a little bit easier. And you'll see people pull out various ones. So here, I'm going to be using this one, obviously, and then we're also going to pull out Maximus because this is freaking cool. So first off, we have our loop here, right? And this is really great. And I've already shown you, it's really, really simple. Essentially, this thing is basically like the attack of the compressor. And we can make it boost, we can make it expand the attack, change the transient that way, or we can make it remove it, or we could add it. Now, I showed you earlier that a lot of people may do this, but then you're going to get level adjustments. You may not want that, and you can achieve a very similar effect simply by just removing some of the sustain. It may not be quite the same effect, so maybe you want that. Maybe you're trying to really pull a difference out of there, but I just want to caution you against boosting, and you already know why, because when we're mixing and stuff, we're going to be mixing to a level anyways, so you don't want to be fooled by what a plugin's doing if it's just increasing the volume. Remember, that's not what you're looking for. You're looking for the things the plugin's actually changing about the sound. If you can't identify that, if it's just a volume change, then it's not going to be. Sometimes you need to change the volume anyway. So you'll get, a 2-for-1. You'll be like, oh yeah, I want that in this. So that's great. But other times you may be doing that and it's just doing stuff. You don't need that. So you just want to be careful about having your levels edge up there on you. But so we can just remove some of the sustain or get it. Now there's the smooth option. And in this particular plugin, you can imagine the attack envelope is generated for you. You can't say like how fast the attack happens, but you can say, hey, make it smoother. So it'll make it just a little bit smoother, some sort of I picture it going from like a line to something more curvy. I don't know. The effect you can hear, though, for yourself. So if we just remove some of the stain, leave the attack on there quite dramatically, and just take a listen without smooth. See, it does a pretty good job at figuring out where those transients are, too. I love this thing. And next, we're going to turn on smooth. So you can hear there's a difference in the initial attack. It's not quite as bam, 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 like right there. But if we get rid of it, and again, put it back. So anyways, those are some things that are there for you. Now let's go ahead and look at this in Maximus. I use Maximus a lot of the time. I love this for general settings. And if I band split my stuff and then put this on individual tracks, this is great. Like I could go at it like affect only the low or the high or the mid. That's really great. But that's way more annoying. So I use Maximus for a lot of stuff like this. So what's my green line all the way up there? I don't know. But with a loop, we need to identify what our, oh, there it goes. That's weird. What our low end is. So here we have our bands, right? We could choose our bands, and I'm going to go ahead and put it on solo mode so I can hear my different bands, and I'm going to play it. So this is only the low end now. That's pretty much what I want there. Oh yeah, there's some potential in there. And then we have our highs. And I just took some, I just said there's too much hat in there. I was like, oh yeah, bring that down a little bit. So these are relatively the bands I'm going to want to use. So I'm going to take it off solo mode. Now I'm going to begin to affect things. So I want my kick drum, I want it to be, I'm going to increase the sustain of my lows, right? So the reason why this shape works the way it does, and this is something that's just really cool you can do with Maximus, is what I've done is I've said, okay, I know a compression envelope will be generated that will come in here and it will turn on as the sound activates it. It's going to say, keep the kick the same, keep the kick the same, keep the kick the same. And all of a sudden it's going to say, oh, make it a bit louder, make it louder, 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 louder. And now it's going to be loud, 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 loud. And once it gets back down here, oh, normal, 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 normal. And so it's going to be louder a lot more of the time than it was before, thus increasing the sustain. So that's the science, I guess, behind the reason this shape does the thing it does. Some people even get fancier and apply saturation in cool ways. We're going to stay away from that. That's sort of like if you want to color it cool, but that's something that's a little specific to Maximus. So we're just going to avoid it. Because you can do similar things with other plugins like this. They might just not have all the options. Anyways, if we play it now. So I'd say, oh, that's kind of extreme. Probably roll it back a bit. So that's kind of cool. Now let's go for our mids, and let's do the same thing with the mids. We're going to make this a very percussive, sort of snappy thing. So when it comes in too, there's going to be a moment where it's like, so depending on where we put this will also affect the rhythm of the drums. That's actually pretty cool. And then we're going to go ahead and do the same thing for the highs. You know what? On the highs, we're just going to do a general upwards compression. So you could also change your attack. We probably want our attacks to be pretty quick. Some that if we want to keep our sustain longer, you could just turn up the sustain here and that will actually slow the envelope down. And so like, check it out. Versus like down here. One moves more and one doesn't. Sometimes you want it to be smoothed out big time because it would create unwanted sounds if it's moving a lot. And then you can do that for various ones. Set your releases, wisely. According to whatever the track dictates. In this case, releases can be, you just want to be careful about a release and attack that are super fast because then you're rewriting waveforms and that's not cool. So if we had like this, we're actually going to end up with distortion if our sustain value wasn't that high. So you see all that? That is way too, it's doing too much right there. So bring our sustain up, or we could just increase our release like wise people. And that's that. So anyways, that's a way of getting at the transients with this versus this, but it looks at it a bit differently because we're using a generated compression envelope to do this, and it's multi-band, which is really freaking cool, versus like this, which is just basically looking at one band, but it's like been trained to look for things. If we run it through Transient Processor and just look at this and just turn that on, you can actually like see the envelope activating. Like, oh, look, it's detecting the transients. How cool is that? Or it's bringing them up. So it's sort of a much more, I love this thing for the visual side of things as well. But this one was good because I've used your ears. That's like, can't really beat using your ears. If you have any questions, let me know. Subscribe, support me on Patreon, and have a blessed day.